fans of this channel know that I am unapologetic about my pride in serving in a military police unit and correcting the record for people who don't understand the combat service that military police units have provided in the global war on terror. But it's not just U.S. military police and counterinsurgencies that use police forces. In Ukraine, the military police unit has gone above and beyond time and time again. And we're going to profile just how this unit came to be and where they've served. Let's get into it. Okay, so what I wanted to profile here is the unit, the Lyut Brigade, which is Ukrainian for fury. It's also spelled L-Y-U-T. And this is what's known as it's an assault brigade, but what's unique about it is that this is under the National Police of Ukraine. And military police tend to have, in different countries, two sorts of flavors. One is where they are under the command of the military or the Ministry of Defense, and another in which they are a branch of the National Police Authority, right? For example, in Brazil, the BOPE is considered the elite of the elite, kind of like their SEAL Team 6 equivalent. And you can see they are actually a military police unit. In fact, the BOPE SEAL, you might notice I think these are 1786 flintlock pistols, identical to the ones behind me, right? Because again, a lot of Western military police forces borrow the same iconography. And the BOPE, of course, exist under the military police unit of the state of Rio de Janeiro. The parent agency, let's see if we can find the actual formation of it. They're a police tactical unit and the gendarme, right? And BOPE units are, again, considered law enforcement, like a military wing of law enforcement. And Brazilian military police are some of the most active in their fight against drug traffickers, right? But in the United States, military police are considered the policing forces of the military, and that when we have a combat role, it is always in an overseas capacity, right? In the case of Iraq and Afghanistan, it meant working with and partnering with the Iraqi and Afghan police forces, which of course in turn were frequent, almost constant targets of the Taliban and Iraqi insurgents. So different police forces are organized in different ways. But in Ukraine, this is actually unique because it is a fully equipped combat brigade that answers to the National Police of Ukraine. It was originally formed in the early Donbas War, in which, remember, when Russian-backed separatists annexed large portions of the Donbas, a lot of local police, as well as militias, functionaries, paramilitaries, and just volunteers, were still loyal to the Ukrainian state. And so those police forces became the core of what they then became known as special purpose units, right? And it just makes sense for so many militaries throughout history to look to their police forces for additional military support or when military forces cannot be deployed. And that's because the police have an existing military structure, right? They often have pre-existing protocols for sort of high threat situations. They have basic training in weapons, but more importantly, they have a resilient command structure, right? They have a headquarters, they have subordinate units, they have individual units. And so once you have an existing command structure, it becomes very easy to grow it, right? Versus growing a command structure from nothing is very difficult. You can imagine, for example, the police headquarters already has the radios and the maps of the local area. And they already have commanders who are super familiar with that area, right? You see how quickly it makes just logical sense that these military police forces or these police forces would become military units. And it's easy to sort of augment often the existing chain of command. This is what happens sometimes in natural disasters here in the United States, where they will attach National Guard troops to existing police structures. Border Patrol is pretty famous for doing it with National Guard and active duty troops during migration crises, in which the active duty troops will simply fall in underneath the Border Patrol chain of command. So I suspect something similar happened in this 2014 invasion. But once Russia invaded, the Ministry of Internal Affairs realized that they needed to professionalize and to integrate these special purpose units into a larger formation. And so they took 3 of the largest special purpose policing units, the Safari Regiment, the Tsunami Regiment, and Luhansk 1 Battalion, which were made up primarily of policemen, and formalized them into the Lyut Brigade and put them underneath the National Police Organization of Ukraine, right? There were also additional battalions that ended up attached to them. And these units, of course, it says were based on police formations. Again, they were organized around likely police formations. And what's fascinating is that actually these guys were profiled in the Washington Post. And before I dig a little deeper, I want to say that I've actually partnered with Ukraine Aid Ops to raise funds for the Lyut Brigade. Particularly, they are looking, they need a lot of non-lethal aid. And this includes, right, jammers, huge. I mean, you guys, if you're a member of Combat Vet News, you know that drones are everything, and the ability to jam drone signals is literally a life or death capability for units. So in addition to buying them some jammers, they need anti-thermal coats to prevent Russia from spotting them through thermal sights, their own thermal night vision, power stations, and generators, right, to make sure that they can run all of their equipment when they're in position. So if you want to, check it out. I've got the link in the description. We've also got a video from them that we're going to check out. But as always, guys, of course, if you donate to certain levels, right, they'll send you guys patches. They've also got a bunch of cool swag, flags, signed flags. Even if you're a big donor, you can get they'll send you a lamp made out of a rocket. I think it's a flare, so it'll get through customs without too much drama. But check it out, right? Links in the description. You can always follow Ukraine Aid Ops on Instagram. What I like about partnering with these guys is they are so public about their donations. We'll literally see, if you follow them on Instagram, you will see what your donations have purchased, usually within a couple of weeks of your donation. So really helpful stuff. Now, I wanted to talk about this profile in I believe it's the Washington Post, or maybe the New York Times, of the Lyut Brigade. And what's fascinating is a couple of very interesting aspects. First is that before the 2014 revolution, Ukrainian police were kind of considered very, very corrupt. But again, as part of the anti-corruption effort, the national police were created in order to prevent some of the local police corruption. But now the reputation of the police has risen in the Ukrainian public's mind. But what's fascinating is that these guys, the police were fighting from day one. As we talked about, they're oftentimes, in a lot of regions, some of the only people with weapons training. And so early in the invasion, a lot of them talked about how it was simply all hands on deck, right? And what makes the brigade kind of unique is a couple of things. First off, is that a lot of current and former police officers are able to join and retain their rank. They also get a sort of hazard pay bonus, for lack of a better term, incentive pays, right, raises for police officers, and a guaranteed post-war employment. This stuff is not trivial, right? When you are in the military, you want to know that your job, you're not going to derail your career. So to sit there and say, hey, listen, I'm going to continue my service with the National Police, but also serve my country in its time of need is a really beneficial policy. So what's also interesting, I thought, is where these guys have fought, right? Again, a lot of people have this stereotype, and I think especially in the U.S., it comes from the fact that military police units that I'm going to try to put this nicely, military police units that screw up, their punishment is often to spend time on forward operating bases, sort of doing the most boring jobs possible, checking IDs in a dining facility, filling sandbags in fighting positions on a base. A lot of times, those are duties that are assigned inside of large bases. I've even heard of military police who screwed up and got assigned to write traffic tickets on a fob to yell at people for driving their combat vehicles too fast. But a lot of units say, oh, when I was deployed, military police, I only saw them do these roles, therefore this must be what they did. But that the military police units doing the hard work are the ones you don't see. Those are the ones who are out living in police stations with Afghan and Iraqi police, right? That's what we did. On a typical week, we would spend probably 6 days out of the FOB partnered with these units, patrolling, looking for crimes, deterring people, searching vehicles, doing all kinds of police work. And so the Lyut Brigade has also been used in a bunch of frontline battles. But notably, what I thought was most notable, I didn't even know it at the time, the brigade actually, in the 2023 counteroffensive, they were in Donetsk Oblast and took the lead in the liberation of Klitschivka, all right? In fact, earning recognition from the president for their role in Klitschivka's liberation. And you might know, again, I was somebody who was very public with the fact that I thought the Ukraine should have done more in Klitschivka. I thought their fighting in the east was where they were most successful. And yet Ukraine assigned brigades that were ostensibly military only to some of those roles in the south. Whereas when they sent their military police brigade there, they really were able to clean house. And you can see that, it's one of the areas where Russia has been the least successful in terms of rolling back Ukrainian gains, right? We talked about before how Ukrainian forces seized the high ground in the Klitschivka's north and then sort of swept through the village itself, stabilizing the lines right along this windbreak here. And so I thought it was really interesting. And I want to, again, to me, so here's the thing with police units is that, as Russia has shown, you can take a civilian and give them the basic individual military skills in like 14 days of training, right? But where Russia fails and where police units can thrive is that the larger culture of being an effective military unit, receiving orders, respecting rank, coming up with a plan, analyzing terrain, staying in your sector, supporting your battle buddies, right? Changing the plan on the fly when things go sideways, right? Keeping a reserve that you can put in to deal with a crisis situation. These are not unsophisticated tactics or operational activities, right? But there's something that police forces do every single day, right? When we would patrol, we actually would often use and sometimes even joke about how similar all our radio traffic sounded to when we were patrolling the streets of Fort Riley, because it was the same thing. We were still doing essentially law enforcement. Fun fact, the Taliban, in addition to fighting a war, were also committing crimes. Like planting an IED is a criminal activity in addition to a hostile one. And so having these protocols in place that you do every day is training. It is military training. And so I suspect for a lot of these police, the easiest part of the job was learning the new military skills, like operating their weapons, operating mortars, or operating, in this case, machine guns, right? I wanted to take a quick look at this, and they sent me this video. YouTube's policies YouTube doesn't know. There's a whole bunch of like cool motivational like combat footage here. It might be training footage, but YouTube doesn't know that. And that's kind of the problem. It looks like they're doing a bunch of night fire exercises, which is dope. Again, something that police do routinely, operate at night, that a lot of other military's units just don't. But I can't really show it because YouTube doesn't know that it's not combat footage, and YouTube will demonetize me. But what I did want to do is point out some of the gear these guys are rocking, right? And we'll at least do the intro video for them. Let's see if we can just zip it ahead here, right? Boom. There we go. Okay.
Hello.
And thankfully, they've got it. Let's see. There you go. They got it subtitled, right? They're the Joint Assault Brigade of Lyut, National Police of Ukraine, and they're asking for help for through the Ukraine Aid Ops Foundation, right? Carrying out the combat missions, which, I mean, ensure the health of their soldiers, right? Which is unironically extremely important. They talk about aerial reconnaissance, right? The drones, and right, thermal imagers and other equipment to perform combat operations, right? So that's a pretty standard mission statement right there. But what I want to point out is you can see here they've got I believe this is a Mark 19 grenade launcher, and I think this is a cord, right? Or the Soviet equivalent, basically, of a belt-fed grenade launcher. They've also got their mortar tubes, and so you can see how if you can have these weapon systems, these all can reach out up to 2, sometimes even 3 kilometers in a pinch if you have the good reconnaissance capability. So as long as they can get their reconnaissance capability, keep their drones flying and keep Russian drones down, even small, individual and crew-served weapons like this can really wreak havoc on the enemy. You can also see here, these guys, all of them have pretty high quality helmets, right? They all have their plate carriers. Again, something that for a police officer to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to take the gear that I need on the mission. This is something that is second nature to a cop, right? Not something that a civilian might deal with, right? What, does a waiter show up to work with everything they need every time, right? No, everything's pretty standardized, right? Police will sit there and go, oh, today I'm doing traffic patrol. So I need to make sure that my kit has this and this and this. Oh, today I'm going to be doing security at a concert. Okay, so I need to have this and this and this, right? That's something that police do intuitively. And you can see, again, these are guys who have the same setup, right? They've got the gear that they need. You can see the individual here, he's got the carabiner on the front. Let's see if we can find some other interesting gear. Let's see if we zip ahead. We can see, all right, oh no, I'm going to get demonetized. Don't demonetize me, right? So I'm going to have to blur all that out. No. But again, you can see everybody's got the gear around the mission that they have. And so again, if you're interested in supporting, if you can, we would really appreciate it. They would really appreciate it. And the link is in the description. For Donor Box. So check us out. And a huge thank you again to Ukraine Aid Ops for doing the hard work, by the way. This is the easy part for me. I just send a donation, right? They do the hard part about getting these guys. And of course, thank you to the Lyut Brigade for giving us the shout out. So that's all I had, right? Thanks to the Colonel tier members of CombatVetNews.com. Thanks to the Lieutenant tier members. And thanks to all the members of CombatVetNews.com. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.